Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Growing Happy Babies Birthworkers interview series. In this podcast directory, I make sure that you have the easiest possible time deciding which wonderful birth supporter is right for inviting into your family's journey. All the potential members of your essential prenatal and postpartum village are assembled right here in the Growing Happy Babies directory. Doulas, midwives, prenatal and infant body workers, lactation consultants, and so much more. I'm Adina Kopinski, board-certified lactation consultant and fellow mom. Together, we transition more easily into motherhood. Let's grow some happy babies together. Today, I am so honored to be talking with Anna King, veteran doula in the Jerusalem area. And I know that she's going to have some wonderful things to tell us today because everybody loves working with Anna. Hi, Anna.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me on.
I'm so happy you're here. I was wondering if we could start out with you telling us a little bit about how you got into this profession.
Good question. I think that there's a couple of ways that people get into this profession. Their own experiences of birth are a big factor in it. Either they've had a great birth and they want to share that, or they've had a bad birth and they want to help women avoid that. For me, the story starts a little bit before even. As a child growing up in London, I always wanted to be a nurse and go into the caring profession. That's what I love doing. Circumstances led to the fact that I wasn't going to be in England at that time of my life, university. And I ended up coming to Israel instead and had to give up on the nursing dream then because I didn't really speak the language and university here was going to be too challenging, and went into graphics. And that's what I did for a while until I actually had my own first baby. And I'm one of those ones that did not have a great birth story, ended up with what I call a traumatic birth and a C-section on top of that. So I really wanted to, first of all, to avoid going through that again. It was a personal journey for myself. So I did a lot of exploring, a lot of asking. The internet was new in those days, but I found like a small band of women who were also trying to have a vaginal birth after a C-section. And we were all giving each other advice. So for me, I succeeded. I ended up having VBACs after that first one and great, amazing births. I can actually say today that I loved giving birth. It was a very powerful, very feminine experience, all of them. And I wanted to share that with others. Plus, women were coming to me and saying, how did you turn something that had been so traumatic for you into something so positive? So I started sharing and talking on the phone, and eventually my husband was like, okay, enough already. Like, why don't you just go out into the field? So when my youngest was 2, my oldest was 10, I decided to take a course. I took a course with Sarah Goldstein, the donor course. And since then, I have been helping women transform their traumatic births into positive experiences, helping women go through VBAC, or just, starting off on the right foot, having a good first birth. You don't have to have a traumatic experience in order to have a good experience. So that's more or less how I got into birthing.
And how many years have you been working as a doula?
So that's the thing. My oldest is 28. From the moment she was born, I started looking into how I was going to avoid giving birth that way again. I realized very quickly there are 2 groups of women who have great births and talk about it, in very positive terms. And then there were women like me who were trying to process and get over and see what we could do differently. So from that moment on, I started reading. There wasn't much around in those days about VBACs. There wasn't much evidence out. There was nothing. We were all trying to help each other. So from that moment, Sarah Goldstein took me under her wing and she would take me to birth conferences. And so really from 28 years ago, I've been in the field. But when I finally decided to make the decision to do her course, That was 19 years ago. So I've been in the field 19 years, but I had that extra 10 years of experience of helping women on the phone. And from
Yeah.
my experiences are from the conferences that Sarah took me to and took me under her wing because she could see that there was some potential there.
My mother fought for a VBAC in the 80s in California, and she had to take herself to almost every OB in Southern California until she found one who would let her do it. And after
Yeah.
two cesareans, she then had four VBACs.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. What a superstar.
Yeah.
That's really something. The women who fight for change, those are the real heroes in the story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then her doctor went on to, be the VBAC doctor. So in
Ah,
a way, without being a doula, I think she really opened the opportunity for women after her.
right. Good for her. Yes, that's exactly it. Um, you know, the whole birth world has changed so much, even in those 19 years, but it's from women like her that are requesting or silently rebelling,
Mhm.
whatever it is, making changes, making little ripples that turn into big waves for women like today, who in Israel, the VBAC success rate in general in Israel is 76%.
Wow.
That wasn't the case many, many years ago. So, yeah.
That is a lovely percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, I guess we already went into this topic a little bit already, but I'm wondering if you can tell us more about what expertise you bring to the field as a doula.
Mhm. So the first one obviously is my knowledge in feedback. I stay very up to date on statistics. The big organizations in America like ACOG, their information filters down to Israel. I had a discussion this week with a doctor in Haratzofim, and I was discussing with him ACOG, and I felt like, yeah, for sure, I'm not a doctor, but I felt like I was on some equal footing that I could quote statistics, and he knew what I was talking about, and we could go backwards and forwards on it. So I try very hard to stay up to date with my statistics. Um, I seem to have over the years attracted many women who have gone through a traumatic birth, whether that is C-section or something else. There's no ruling what is traumatic and what isn't. It's what the woman feels like. And I can look at a birth and think, oh, well, that went really well. But still, a woman could report it as being traumatic for her. So one of my specialities is helping women change that over to something more positive. And I get a lot of sipuk, a lot of satisfaction from seeing women turn their negative stories into positive ones. What else do I offer? So I think that also, for me, it's not just a business. I really form relationships with my women. I do a lot of prenatals before, I do afterwards. I stay in touch with them. I wish them happy birthday on their first birthdays of their baby. I try very much to stay in touch. I encourage them, send me pictures. I love seeing your babies grow up. And it's really a very nice feeling sometimes I'll be on the street and two or three women will stop me and say, look, you have to see my baby. And I love that. Or I love waking up in the morning and turning on my WhatsApp and seeing, 5 messages from women who have said, my baby, you have got to see my baby. Look how big they've got their first tooth. So that's my expertise. Another thing that I think is very important is when you go into the hospital, a good doula should be, as well as she respects the staff, they should respect her. And I do feel that when I walk into a hospital, I am given some respect, and that is very important in order to be able to help the woman. I don't challenge the system in a head-to-head way. I will take aside doctors on a quiet moment and discuss something with them, or nurses or midwives, or I get to know the nurses and midwives in a non-birthing situation. Maybe we'll go out for coffee or something and discuss something that happened. And that has led to a lot of breakthroughs in the relationships that I have with the staff in all the hospitals. And it only goes on to help the future women, because respect is very important both ways. It's a two-way street. you can have a decision that you don't agree with, but you don't have to go head to head. That's not going to help you at all. So expertise is in learning how to build up the relationships. My confidence in the birthing world. It's an arena that I'm very, very confident in, and that's what's going to help a woman. Yeah, and also a woman is very vulnerable. I know a woman is very vulnerable in a birthing situation, and she wants to feel safe. So I hope that I bring that to the table also. I help her feel protected. I help her feel like she can ask questions. That's the point of all the prenatals, that I give her tools so that she shouldn't feel intimidated in an arena that she might not be familiar with. Might be her first birth or a second, but she might not feel familiar, when everybody rushes in. So I give them tools to be able to speak up for themselves.
Yeah. You said that when you first moved to Israel, you didn't go to nursing school because of Hebrew, but I assume that your Hebrew is fluent now.
My Hebrew is fluent now. I did think many times about going back to university and doing nursing or midwifery. That's where I really wanted that was the kivun. But the truth is, working in a hospital as a midwife is not the ideal for me. I really enjoy getting to know my ladies on a personal basis, spending many hours with them before the birth, during the birth, at their home, getting to know their other kids, their husband, their pets, their home environment, their friends, their mothers. And that is truly caring for a woman, knowing her whole circumstance. A lot of the women open up to me if they've had difficulties in their life, abuse or who knows what, or addiction, and it helps me to help them. But a midwife in a hospital, most of the time, she doesn't know any of this stuff. And it's very hard for her to care. Yes, she's the one who catches the baby at the end. And that's, like, whoa, everybody wants to do that. But she didn't really get to know the woman. And that to me is not, that's a sad reality. So I decided many years ago, no, I'm not going back to school. I'm not going to become a midwife. I'm going to continue being a doula. That's where I see that I have talent.
Can you tell us a story about a beautiful or transformative birth that you have witnessed or assisted with?
Okay, so a couple of stories. I think that the best stories are the ones where I've helped women who really had no confidence in the birthing world or really thought that they wouldn't be able to do something. And those best stories are the ones where I've helped them realize their potential and realize how strong they are. There's a couple of stories. One of them was a lady, a very young lady. I think she was about 19 and had just got married and immediately was expecting her first baby in a country that, she wasn't from Israel. She was from Chutz La'aretz. And even though she had done a very good course for Hachana L'Leida, birth preparation, she was so scared. And she said, Anna, don't even talk me out of it. Don't even try. I'm taking an epidural. So it's not my job to say yes or no, but I do require my women to be open-minded, because I actually said to her, who has scared you so much that you think that you can't do it without an epidural? So she said, my mother-in-law, everyone's telling me I have to have an epidural. So I said, okay. I said, if you want to be my client, you have to be open-minded. So she's like, fine. I'll be open-minded, but I know myself. I said, and more than that, her mother called me from Chutz La'aretz and said, you don't know my daughter. You've only met her once or twice. And I want you to know that she's not going to be able to do it without an epidural. So I was like, okay, I've not had that before where a mother got involved, but there's some serious stuff going on here. And okay, so I said, listen, I told the daughter, I just keep minds open. Fine. She went into labor. She was having some contractions and we were checking in and she was managing fine. And her husband was using some of the skills that I taught him to help her in the house. And I was waiting for them to say, come over, it's getting hard. But I did notice that the contractions were going very quickly. So I said, you know what? I think I'm going to send you to a midwife to get checked. Is that would you be interested in that? And she said, absolutely. So they took a taxi over to a different neighborhood, got checked. And she's all the time saying, I'm fine, I'm okay. Just they were coming really often. She was 6 centimeters.
Wow.
So the midwife, so I was already on my way in. I met her at the midwife's house and we decided to make our way to the hospital. By the time she got to the hospital, she was 9 centimeters and still coping fine. And, they asked her in the hospital, would you like an epidural? No, I'm okay. And she gave birth without an epidural.
That
And
has been transformative for her.
our births they make us. They have the power to make us. And that birth turned her into such a confident young woman she just grew so much from that because she had been told by all these matriarchs in her family that she can't do it. And I didn't force her into anything. She kept saying, she's fine, she's fine. And that was a beautiful story. So that's one. And just very quickly, another story I once had was a woman who had come to me after a stillbirth and 2 C-sections, and really, really wanted a positive outcome for her next baby. And I was instrumental in helping her find the right hospital, the right doctor, and we helped her have a VBAC after 2 C-sections and after stillbirth, and she did it. And there wasn't a dry eye in that room when she gave birth. You can imagine everybody, it was the most incredible birth. And for her, just to overcome so many things, a live birth, 2 C-sections. So those are some beautiful stories.
What is one thing that you think that you want to tell the people listening that they might be surprised by in the postpartum period?
Okay, so a couple things. I'm seeing recently, over the last few years, a real difficulty in nursing. That's one thing, and you probably, you probably see that. I think that if I could describe it in a way that is easy to understand, is breastfeeding is like a dance that neither of you know, except one of you depends on their life for it. So you don't have much time to get to know how to do the steps, but patience is important. And I remember that with my first one, I was ready to give up after the first few days. I was after a C-section. I was in a lot of pain. Even without a C-section, women can be in a lot of pain. And the milk didn't come through so quickly, which is often the case after a C-section. And I was crying and the baby was screaming. And my husband is the one who just kept saying, just be patient, keep going. And it did take about 2 weeks, which is a really long time, and a few bottles along the way. It took about 2 weeks for us to settle into a comfortable breastfeeding relationship, which is a long time, I think. Is like you're a baby moon. Stay at home for the first couple of weeks. There's no need to run to She Love to buy the latest stroller. There's no reason to go to the mall because your mother's in from America and you have to do some shopping or entertain them. Stay home, stay in your pajamas, stay in the warm, have your friends make a meal train for you. And gradually, move on into the world. But for those first 2 weeks, stay home with your baby and snuggle, do lots of skin to skin. That's what I would say.
Skin to skin is the magic. That comes along with the patience for breastfeeding is even if you're not breastfeeding and even if you can't and even if you're struggling and even if it hurts, the more you do skin to skin with your baby, the closer you're going to get to successful breastfeeding. And often it's sometimes the only help you need is just a lot of skin to skin. But I would say that if you need a lot of patience and skin to skin, get some skilled help also.
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank God we have these days lactation consultants, postpartum doulas. I mean, as my job, I stay in touch with the woman. I go visit her sometimes. In in my package, it says I'll come once to visit. Sometimes I come twice, but phone calls are also very important, or being able to refer her onto someone who might help if there's any difficulty that's outside of my realm. Yeah, seek advice.
Yes.
Especially with the first baby.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's so new.
Right. You'll get there eventually. There's some great books on the market as well. There's some great lactation consultants around, yourself included. And the couple will pay you back. So they also recognize that women need help.
Yes.
So
yes. It was really great to have you on the show today. Thank you, Anna.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for the chance.
Friends, check out the full directory for every interview we've done up until now, housed at my website, growinghappybabies.com. But before you go, I've got one question. Are you the kind of person who learns better by listening or by doing? In my 2-part online prenatal breastfeeding class, the Pocket Prenatal, I blend the basics of breastfeeding with practical hands-on skills. Choose to watch the videos on your computer or phone, read through the transcripts, or pop in an earbud, take a walk, and listen to the audio-only podcast version. After you've dived into the what's and whys of breastfeeding, join part 2, our live hands-on class, where we roll up our sleeves and practice the how of breastfeeding. Experience hand expression, learn how to size yourself for better pumping, practice bottle feeding techniques that improve your baby's sucking skills, and use easy bodywork exercises to help your baby's comfort, sleep, and digestion. You're going to walk out of this class with an essential toolkit for navigating early motherhood. This is the class every baby needs their mother to take. Go to thepocketprenatal.com and use your listener code, growinghappybabies, for a special 10% discount. See you there.